All right, so once again, we're starting here off the rip. The platoons have distributed themselves across the map. We're searching for contact. Keep in mind that we want to keep elements within a couple minutes reach of each other, because if you walk into a bad engagement, I think everyone here knows at this point, if you walk into the worst scenario, that tide can turn super fast. If that ambush is set properly, and your element is caught in the open, it is seconds, right? It is seconds that can change the flow of the fight on the initial contact. So keep that in mind as you're maneuvering with squads. I know you guys kind of want to spread out in order to, see contact more. The advice I would give you guys in that regard is to spread your fire teams out more, but keep the squads together, if that makes sense. Because even here, you can kind of see this entire squad staying together. This entire squad is kind of squad comp fire team wedge out, right? But you can cover more ground, but be equally spaced. If we have a fire team here, 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 right? And now you have an actual line, but everything is kind of tied in. So that would be the first little bit of wisdom. Of course, right? First weekend alpha, so not expecting you guys to be making the exact proper decisions all the time. Tons of new people to the genre, tons of new people to the game, tons of new people to the leadership positions in Bellum. But just keep that in mind that Death Blob, we touched on this yesterday as well. Death Blobs are not the best. We want to make sure that we are spread out and we maintain dispersion between elements, even within fire teams. Anyways, so that's kind of the setup we have going in. You can kind of see Red 4 has a little bit of that going on with these fire teams kind of spaced out. This squad is all deathballed up, however. And we're just going to continue jumping forward here. Red 4 pushes up to a point where they can start moving out of the woods into a couple of buildings. However, just if we're paying attention, right, making sure that we're acknowledging like this move brings us out of cover into some sparse buildings. Like you are leaving a more concealed area with technically more cover because these trees do stop bullets, and you are exposing yourself a little bit more. Just keeping every movement in mind, right? I know it gets super complacent out there after like 5 minutes go by and people start like getting lazy and start running across fields and whatnot, but the way that we've designed it with the attrition and the AO, like contact can happen at any moment, so you kind of have to stay vigilant. And it is going to come. Contact is 100% going to hit you because that is the whole point of the game mode. So as boring as it might seem sometimes, if you get caught being complacent, you do get punished quite heavily. So as we can see here, Rangers are kind of being a little complacent here. We see a death blob. We see them moving in the open. There's a tree line here on the left they could be utilizing. And Insurgents are playing it relatively slow. We see a little bit more dispersion here with fire teams and proper placement. Neither team has seen each other yet at this point. Once again, this squad a little bit too far or further than I'd like, and just acknowledging the terrain. Like if they were to move to assist, you guys have this massive field, right? So squad leaders and fire team leaders just acknowledging all these tiny things. I know it's hard, right? This is where all the decision making is. And once again, no shame on anybody. First weekend, all right? I know this is really in-depth stuff, and this is stuff that some of us have only picked up off of after years of playing specific milsim operations and experiences. So definitely no shame. This is a learning experience. We're trying to teach everyone so that we have as solid of a leadership base moving forward. So we see 1-1 here from the Ranger side begin to push up to the building. Really good separation here from Op4, because if you can imagine this situation, if this whole Insurgent squad was packed into the building, it would not take much in order to fix and pin down the entire squad, right? Because all you have to do is shoot at the window, shoot at the doors. If you had packed 9 guys in here, this would be completely locked. But because there is some separation, you have another angle that you can work. You can fall back. It just gives you more options. So keep that in mind. Separation of the fire teams is really good. Blue 4 kind of pushes up here haplessly to the building. Of course, these guys are doing a really good job of staying concealed. And we see first contact initiate. Also, Lone Wolves, we saw this all day. Lone Wolves go off into the woods and they'd walk into a 9-man squad and get absolutely demolished. So sometimes a Lone Wolf can get lucky, right? But the way that we've designed the mode with the size and enforcement of the teams and how the medical works, this Lone Wolf would have to kill the entire element in order to get any positive exchange. Even if he knocks 4 guys here, they'll kill this one guy. This guy loses a life. Medics get the element back up. So just showing how we combat lone wolfing. Of course, there's still other things we're going to do. We're still very early on, but we saw this time and time again. Lone wolves running off, get spotted by a 9-man and Swiss cheesed. But okay, so we continue here. Blue does a decent job. We have some separation here. Okay, so this is really good Fonty. Before pushing into the building, he did separate, right? Because we can imagine the same thing. If we took all 9 blue 4 here and we pushed into the open, in the open, pinned down, double angle, right? You're cooked. But Fonty at least had separated prior to moving into the building. So good call here from Fonty. And as you can see, this firefight starts to develop, and we have casualties from blue 4 in the open, and this starts to become an issue real fast. If you're alone and one of your fire teams goes down and you do not have a friendly squad to assist you, it becomes near impossible to pick up these casualties, because in order to do so, you would have to expend bodies from the second fire team to assist and provide medical to these guys while also pulling security and trying to win the fight. So it is just not feasible if you're on your own. The second that first fire team hits contact, it is you're kind of cooked. So you need to play close to your squads for that reason, because or you break back and you lose these guys, right? And that's a decision that could be made and might be necessary in some instances, but getting these guys back up is going to be exponentially more difficult without another squad supporting. So we have this play out here. These guys are pinned down in the open, in no man's land, pretty much trapped at this point. Blue 4 does a really good job of opening up on the building and getting fire superiority, right? So blue 4 versus Rangers versus Insurgents. You have that overmatch in that regard, and they begin chipping away at that element. We're going to speed up here. But as you can see, these guys, there's no way that this fire team, while maintaining the fight and also trying to get casualties, is ever going to safely get these dudes. We have a second angle here because Red 4 was set up properly, and they begin engaging the assaulting element. So right now we see why, having another squad to support and with you is so important, because right now these guys are decisively engaged. So we see blue start pushing up and taking the building. They're able to push out red. And so this is where we kind of see the issue of like knowing when to move a fire team and when not to, right? Because this red team picked up, and without support, blue was able to push in. So I do like the aggression here, but just know that sometimes you are going to need to talk with the other fire teams, understand their disposition, and whether or not you have the freedom to move, right? Because if you're pinned down, you might not have that freedom to move. But blue is able to sweep through here with aggression, and that works. It was super risky, but the timing of it, right? So funny. There's 2 seconds, right? 3 seconds that red picks up and moves their guns. They drop the sector in the open field, and blue is able to collapse and crash the building. Fonty made a great call here to crash the building. So it's a good aggressive play, really risky play. But that was pretty much one of his only options. He could risk the aggressive play on the left flank or pull back and reconstitute. He opted for the aggressive play. I don't have exactly the situational awareness he had on the ground, but something told him that he could exploit the aggression. And sometimes you have to roll the dice. Red 4 picked up at the worst possible time, and he was able to push in. So we're going to see how this kind of spirals now into a complete 30-minute brawl. So Red 4, once again, first mover's advantage to blue. They were able to get in the building. Now red is coming in behind a little bit late. However, this is a great teaching moment where even when there's casualties down, right, guys, we need to maintain security, okay? Because we're about to see a tragic thing happen. We have 2 casualties on the ground and 3 guys working them. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys out of the squad and 4 up on guns. Those 4 guys on guns are covering 360 degrees to the front and the rear of the element. So at this point, we now have made the situation worse. So now the ideal way to do this, if we have casualties down, right, you need to create a bubble surrounding the casualties. Okay, you cannot just treat these guys if you are what we call the frontline trace. Okay, if you are the frontline trace, you should not be the forwardmost guy treating casualties. You need to fight past the casualties and set up security. Okay, you have to always get that done, because if you are the frontmost guy, what that means is every angle on someone pushing into you, they're going to see you first. They're just going to see you first. So whenever possible, even if it's just an inch, a meter, sometimes it's that far, you need to set up some security for the guys who are working casualties. In this particular situation, we unfortunately have no one, right? So Op4 is able to push up and begin hitting the... Once again, yes, we'll have dragging and moving. That's just a time and effort thing on our end. But yeah, these guys eventually get caught in the open. A little luck here from the Rangers, but this is obviously the last place you want these guys to be, right? Is in the complete open with elements moving in on all sides to surround. So that's just a teaching thing here. You can luck out, right? And sometimes you are going to win the gunfights that you have no business winning. But just keep that in mind. Whenever treating casualties, you just need to make sure you hold security as you're doing it. Now we're going to continue this whole small firefight is going to continue to open up into a larger brawl. We start seeing elements on every side. Like we have casualties still in the open. These guys are going to be in the open for a very long time. And now we have elements from red 4 pushing in, and we have elements from blue 4 pushing in. And then we also have another fire team from red 4 on the opposite end. So this house is going to turn into a point of interest for the next 30 minutes. And because this squad has no support, they're going to end up getting absolutely pinned in there. Casualties are still in the open, and we still see this house has just got casualties all over it. Incredibly hard to move. So we're just going to speed this up because squads start maneuvering into position, and everyone's essentially trying to take the house in order to get their guys back up. When we talk about taking structures in this kind of environment with these kind of conditions, there are certain things you need to make sure that you have checked off in order to safely do so. Otherwise, you're going to continue expending resources into a lost cause. So I'm going to bring up paint one more time, and we're going to kind of draw out the house. So the same kind of situation of the casualties, we're going to expand to buildings in a sense. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you cut this thing off from any OP4 or any enemy interference so that you can work this problem in isolation, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is have all your guys on this end and have all of OP4 on this end, and then you guys are just streaming like this repeatedly into the issue, right? What we want to actually see is you want to set conditions, and what we mean by that is you want as many things stable before you continue working, right? We want to eliminate as many instances of chance. We want to eliminate as many options the OP4 has. And so what we're going to do is essentially lock this thing down. And we're going to lock it down from the outside and the inside if possible. When I say outside, what I mean is influence coming in from outside. And from inside, what I mean is freedom of these guys moving around the building itself, okay? So what you're going to want to do that is you're just going to want to set up some kind of positions as much as possible to cover as much of the building from outside. And then you're going to want to set up something. You don't have to have bodies in the way of the OP4 route. You can set it up even with just an MG that cuts off the likely push in. But we want to just set the stage so that as little as possible is going to influence our assaults or our time working with this structure or working with this problem. And you can kind of expand this thinking to a lot of other different scenarios where you want control over what you're actually working, and you want to stop the enemy from influencing the thing that you're working. It doesn't have to be a building. It could be a tree line. It could be whatever the case may be. That is kind of the advanced tactics you're thinking when employing your fire teams or your squads in order to deal with this. Because if you don't, what you end up just having is a slog and a meat grind of both teams. If both teams don't do this, both teams pushing into the structure, and then you're just having just like an absolute brawl, and you're just throwing the dice on the entire encounter. So that's you'll kind of see that play out as we push on here. So both squads are now pushing in. So what I mean by that is, if we wanted to work this from red, what we would do is make sure that we have, guns in this tree line, guns in this tree line. And then after we have that set, we have guns looking at where they could Blue 4 could possibly come in from and locking it down. And then only at that stage would we begin working the building, because CQB is incredibly lethal. You are going to take casualties anytime you push a building. You're going to want to make sure that you have as stable of conditions as possible before you incur those casualties. Because if you incur those casualties and you do not have stable ground, you are going to end up with issues. So as we can see here, Red 4 has a decent control over the building itself, but they do not have control over that incoming element, right? And so that's where this push starts to break down and become very difficult. Versus if they had, any kind of element that had eyes over this, whether it was this one here or whatever the case may be, it would be enough to fix or slow these guys down, and then we can work the building in isolation. So we just need to keep that in mind as you're working structures. Blue 4 finally all getting into position. And you can kind of also see here the importance of Al Zalam to recognize a unit isolated. Anytime you can catch a Ranger squad or a Satyr squad alone, that is the best opportunity you have. And first you have to gather that information, of course. But you can see how there's a window here while Rangers are caught out of position, maybe like a 5 to 10 minute window, where if all of Al Zalam was together and was consolidated, that if your platoon is working better and more cohesively, you can identify these gaps or these opportunities and then exploit them rapidly. And this is going to come with time. It's going to come with experience, but you'll get a feel of like, okay, this feels like just a one Ranger squad here, right? Or maybe there's another squad out here that sees these squads moving across and like, okay, these guys are like 5 minutes out. There's an opportunity or a window. So like seeing and recognizing these things on the ground is very hard. It is not easy. It takes time. It takes experience. You have to listen to the gunfight. You have to feel the vibe of it. But you will get to a point where it clicks. So just making sure that you're constantly looking for opportunities because they're out there. You might not see them yet in your inexperience, but they are out there. Anyways, we're going to continue here now. So this is like a decent example of like a good delaying or isolation action, right? There's a few insurgents here that are going to be able to stop this entire Ranger squad from supporting. So you can kind of see elements of how we should take this building come into play, but they're happening desync, right? Or at different times. There's not enough coordination. And once again, that's hard. Totally get it. Essentially a public match with you guys, but you guys have already shown more teamwork in this weekend than any other, platoon shooter I've ever seen. So it's just a continuation of that experience and that training and tactics and just general veterancy in the project that you guys will be able to pull stuff like this off. Because we're going to see here in a moment, as we continue this match, some insane platoon coordinated assaults. We're going to continue here, and now we can see like we kind of have those conditions met. We have a little bit of that delaying or isolation action from this element over here. We have a little bit of those areas surrounding the structure essentially contained or bottled up, right? So we're restricting movement within the building, and you can see the assaulting force from the insurgents come in here now, and this becomes a much simpler problem to work, right? Because now this team only has to worry about the building. That's what we want to do. You don't want to make things more complicated. You want to make things simpler for the people who are doing the things. You don't want this team to worry about, oh, I have to worry about these guys coming in, and I have to worry about these guys moving around in the building, and then also there's another squad coming in here. Every element should get a task that is very simple, that allows the people who are doing that task to focus solely on that task. That is kind of the essence of the teamwork and coordination that will really excel in this project. Now, keep in mind that it's going to take time, obviously, to do that, but you want to make things simpler as a squad leader. You want to make things simpler as a fire team leader. And then only when looking at in macro does the entire plan or coordination begin to look complex. You want it to look simple. You want to give people simple tasks. Hey, 1-1 Alpha, sit here and cut these guys off. 1-1 Bravo, sit here and cut off any guys coming in. 1-2, you guys are just fighting the building. That's all. Like, if you can break things up as a squad leader and eventually a platoon leader into simplifying the tasks for every element to where they only have to focus on one thing, you're going to see very, very good results. Because what happens is if there's no direction or there's too much direction, people will end up getting confused. And you don't want confused dudes out there. You want dudes focused on their single task and being able to just address their single task. So we see Red 4 push in here. Now, this is where like CQB is just gnarly, right? And we're not expecting like perfect CQB here. Like, it's a public server, right? We've got all these people doing different things when it comes to fighting, but we can also see like this Ranger is able to just walk in from this right? Whereas if we had proper control over the building, this guy gets clapped or chopped before he even pushes close to the building. These guys can continue only focusing on the building. So you can kind of see how these guys start leaking in, and this becomes an issue, right? Because we never cut these guys off. Just remember, once you have the building pinned down, the dudes in the building should be the last thing you deal with, right? Because these guys are going to be stuck in here. So once you have a group stuck in a building, you have time to work. You have all the time in the world. There's no cap flags that you have to worry about. There's no timer you have to worry about. Set the conditions for success. Do not rush. If we have a squad pinned in a building, get in position around the building, or like identify where the supporting elements are going to come from, because they are going to come to you, right? They're going to hear the gunfight and they're going to come to you, and set up in positions to cut them off. So control the building, cut them off, then work the building. But if you do too much all at once, it's just going to mash into each other. So keep that stuff in mind. So now it's turning into just another, and same thing here, right? With the Rangers, like, you don't have to go straight into this building. The dudes in the building are not going anywhere. Come out, control the sides, and then lock down the situation so you can deal with the building. There's no rush. We can even see here, there's some insurgents on that south side, but what we're seeing right now is both teams just rush into the building without conditions set. So that is what causes mass casualties and a meat grinder on both sides. Take your time with it, guys. There's enough time that you do not have to rush anything. There might be certain windows of opportunity that require time and speed, but in general, like, especially as the Rangers, like, you have the manpower, you have the overmatch. Get your stuff in a position, and then push. Because right now we just have onesies and twosies slamming into the building, and it just becomes like, you have exactly what we talked about before, where you have Rangers on this side, insurgents on this side, and it's just a brawl over a single structure. So control, cut off, and then assault. This brawl continues for a very long time, as we can see here. But yeah, essentially, when you hear people talk about conditions set, you want to make sure that you are in as stable as a position as possible. Take the time to think, okay, how can we puzzle by puzzle, piece by piece, lock down each individual part of this problem so that the team that I have attacking is in the most supported position possible. You don't want to throw things into the open. Rangers eventually end up winning this fight. Once again, this small 4-man element over here was able to delay this entire Ranger force. Okay, so they did a really good job slowing down this entire force, but keep in mind that it has to be coordinated, right? You have to be doing this for a reason. If that whole fight down below wasn't even happening, the best move for these guys is to fall back, because this delaying action is doing nothing. They're going to get overmatched, they're going to get overwhelmed, and for nothing. There's no actual supporting thing that's happening here. So think about that stuff. There should be a reason you're doing something at the greater level. Once again, at this stage, everyone's just trying to survive. Everyone's just trying to live out there. I totally get it, and just have fun. I get it. But if you want to spend less time in the death screen, we're just giving you advanced tips to think about when you're out there. And you're never going to do this perfectly on the first go, but just for all the new people in here that are new to the genre, new to this way of thinking, these are the things you should consider. Okay, we eventually have Blue 4 lock them out, right? But you can see here there's no control really over the structure from Blue 4. They just kind of brute force into the building. There's still dudes outside. They're shooting Rangers as they're moving in and out of the building. Whereas ideally we have control over the outside of the building, and then we push in. So kind of backwards here. You just were able to brute force it, and sometimes, you know, that's able to be done. But yeah, okay. Off that initial engagement, the insurgents had a very hard time recovering, because you can see here the Rangers are just rolling through one squad at a time, like a 2-on-1 advantage through each squad. Right, this squad gets annihilated, and then we fast forward, right? And then this squad gets eaten, right? A 2-on-1 advantage. You can see that very clearly here. And this squad's coming in. This insurgent team had a very hard time matching tempo again. And because of that, you had Rangers here, 2-on-1 advantage, right? This squad is not acknowledging the fact that 2 of their squads are off the board, right? And if you try to fight with 2 of their squads off the board, you're going to have a bad time. Now, that does not mean you have to completely run off and be completely useless with your tail tucked behind your legs. Right? This squad can even do something even more effective in this spot, recognizing that they are overmatched by numbers in the zone, and just shoot at the Rangers a little bit here, fall back. Shoot at the Rangers here a little bit, fall back. Maybe cause casualties. And now what you have as an insurgent force is you have a very small number of people locking down and fixing entire Ranger squads, right? And that's how you have to play as Al-Zalam in some instances, because you can make your force feel very large, right? You have an extra life to do so. You have mobility on the initial spawn on the map. You can make very small squads support the element in such a massive way, right? Because imagine if the entire game you just have a squad of insurgents, or 2 fire teams, or even just 1 fire team that's constantly here. They shoot at the Rangers, then they move over here. They shoot at the Rangers, they move at here, they shoot at the Rangers, and they never push in. You will cause so much confusion. You'll cause so much disarray, as is authentic and thematic to the theater, right? because the Rangers are very slow, right? They only have 3 lives. They have to pick up their casualties. But you as Insurgents have that 1 extra life that lets you get just that little bit more aggressive. And you can really cause a lot of damage with a fire team or a squad that's continually just harassing. And then at that point, right, you have all the information as an Insurgent team of like, okay, we've got a squad pin here, we've got a squad pin here, and now you have an idea or better information to make an informed decision on which isolated element you're going to chew away at. So just keep that stuff in mind, because that's if you try to play the Insurgents like a conventional force, you're gonna get mollywopped. So here we see this squad gets absolutely annihilated, then this squad starts getting pushed on, right? And then you'll see right here, right, 2 squads on 1, right, not recognizing the overmatch. So Rangers did a super good job here, right? And then same thing again, like if this squad decides to push in again, 1v3, essentially that's what you're doing without acknowledging your element. You can kind of see how you have to coordinate. You do, or you're gonna have a bad time. You have to. This Ranger element is coordinating much better, right, than the Insurgents. So like right here, even you could harass, pull back, go around, cloverleaf around, right? When we say cloverleaf, what this means is, let's say this is the target. You come in here, you shoot. You want a cloverleaf by coming back out and in like this again. Shoot. You come back out, come back in like this. Shoot. And it looks like a cloverleaf, right? This looks like a cloverleaf. Why do we do this, right? Why is this movement technique important? Why is this tactic important? It's because moving laterally like this from point A to point B is going to get you absolutely annihilated because this movement is super easy to see, right? How many times do you see guys moving left to right? Like your human eyes are going to spot this particular movement very easily versus if you come out, go around a terrain feature and then come back straight in. This is much more effective in order to reposition. And rapid cloverleafs can make your element, right? If you have like just a 9-man squad here, you send 1 cloverleaf out here, you see one out here. This element that's pinned right here, they're gonna feel like there's a squad here, a squad here, a squad here. And then the additional meta, right, is bluffing, and maybe these are full squads, right? That's the ever evolving meta that will be present in Bellum and that we're trying to create, is that it is just a constant battle of tactics among the leadership and the guys on the ground to just have an endless counter thinking and get creative with it, right? Realism here is built with a purpose, not as a limit, but for a way for you to express skill level and creativity. So coming back, and I know like you guys, I want to get some kind of system in that you guys can watch this stuff because on the ground, you guys don't really see the big picture, right? But you can see how much everyone's individual decision as a grenade launcher, as an automatic rifleman, who's pulling security in what direction, who's watching the rear, what squad is moving there, what fire team is moving there. All of that adds up into the beautiful picture, right, in this game. Every single decision everyone makes out here, you know, if some guy drops flank security, a fire team leader makes a bad push in the open, right? If a grenade launcher has, you know, the capability to drop a 40 mic on 3 guys, like all that stuff, everything matters. So we're going to continue here. So we can see here, overmatch here once again. And then once again, Insurgents, right? They open up again and you kind of see how this, you see the pattern, right? You see the pattern. Now there's a one Ranger squad here, another Ranger squad here, 1 Insurgent squad. You can kind of see how this is going to go. Now, Insurgents did a great job opening up and getting the element of surprise. But once again, as we talked about in the first section of this video, you cannot remain decisively engaged as an Insurgent element. You cannot. That is not how that works. Because the longer you sit here trying to finish these guys off, right, you're going to have another Ranger element maneuver on you. And that's exactly what we see happen. Second squad comes in to assist, and this ends up being a super gnarly engagement here. So we're just speeding through here. You can see you're just going to lose this battle of attrition. You don't have the body armor. You don't have the weaponry to sustain this. And then we see some Ranger movement right here on the left flank to get in. Right, so a little bit of a squad attack here, right? And we can see how a squad attack works. These guys are still focused and fixed to the front. And the Rangers lose 1 person here, I think Dance, but then they mop up. Right, super nice, near textbook squad attack. Right, and they mop that up. Super cool to see the tactics at play. Super cool to see how effective they are. But the battle of the base is about to begin, and oh my god, this is an insane freaking fight. Okay, so once again, same problem happens, right? Insurgents push in. They aren't taking into account that the squads are out of sync and they're mismatched or desynced, right? And so it's kind of, you can see how that tempo was just completely destroyed at the beginning, and they never recovered. Keep in mind, you have all the time in the space to recover. There's nothing forcing you to do anything else other than kill the enemy as efficiently as possible. And sometimes that requires you to not make offensive action, to wait for the supporting elements, and then to make a coordinated move, right? So don't feed, right? Try not to feed as much as possible. So we continue here. There's some stragglers, right? Rangers end up cleaning it up quite a bit, right? Just onesies and twosies from the insurgents. And like, you can kind of see, like, yes, you can kind of be effective as insurgents or as lone wolf. Like, you'll get one or two guys, but unless you wipe the whole group, like, you are going to lose the lives. They're going to get their guys back up, and the exchange is for naught. Unless you're sacrificing the lives for time, right? And that's a more advanced topic that we'll get to, where sometimes this is the best move because you do need to spend the time. You do want to keep them stuck here for whatever the case may be, and it will require sacrifice, right? Because these are individual lives that you are throwing away, and those are impactful, right? It is the win condition, and it also impacts that player's thing. So there's certain times where, yeah, you are going to want to expend the lives, sacrifice an element in order to execute a larger maneuver. And you'll kind of see that come into play in a minute here. So we can see Rangers kind of reconstitute. These lone wolves get killed, right? Or these stragglers get killed. Rangers move in and rally, essentially. Okay, so we see a little bit of halted movement here, right, from this element in the woods. Super good job, right? We're not being overly aggressive, but you could see, like, you're just throwing one squad into the Rangers at a time for the past 50 minutes. That's kind of been the name of the game, and that's kind of been the pacing. But watch what happens when the insurgents finally get their stuff together. When they finally organize themselves, you're about to see how insane. It also takes into account some tactical missteps from the Ranger side, but you can kind of see strength in numbers, right? Strength in numbers. All right, so we're pushing up. This squad is patiently waiting. We finally have, I think it's 2 insurgent squads here. The third is coming in from main base. You'll see right here, still third, very far away. So 2v3, right? We don't necessarily want to kick off the hornet's nest. Like, maybe we do some harassing action, delaying action, we fall back, hit and run, right? Or we wait, right? And we wait for the right moment to strike, right? Because if you engage this, the way the platoons are set up and spread out, this is going to get absolutely mollywopped. So Rangers, I don't know if they knew about this or what the case may be, but there are moments where Ranger elements will split up. And this is one of those points where I don't know if these guys saw that these guys were alone at this point, or it was just, divine timing, but we can see this element's alone. So you see there are opportunities. There are opportunities to catch conventional forces in isolation. There'll be tactical missteps. They'll get complacent, and you just have to be vigilant for these opportunities. But we're about to see here, this one squad is now they're not even fully up yet, right? There's still some casualties on the ground here. It was maybe a little preemptive for this element to break security from these casualties being brought up. So that's one tactical misstep, right? And once again, these tiny decisions end up turning into massive consequences. So 1-3 has casualties here, but this supporting element breaks before this mass cal is properly attended to. And whether it's divine timing or the insurgents saw it, they apparently felt an opportunity, right? And now we can see, okay, there's a little bit of a gap here where they can do something. And so we're about to see the battle of the base, which is absolutely insane. I had the biggest smile on my face this entire time. But yeah, this was so cool to watch. So what happens here is Red 4 starts. Wow, we're covering, we're moving. Good, great job. Awesome, good stuff, right? Not the entire main element is crossing in the open. We're being very smart with our resources. We're still a squad down, so this is kind of risky, right? And this squad, right, as you're coming into the zone, if you're ever a squad coming back into the zone, the mentality of this squad should be, all right, we're reset, we're in the back foot. How do I support who's already out there? Under no real circumstances should you as a squad leader or a leadership element of an element coming back into the zone be like, okay, we're making our own plan and we're going to do our own thing, right? Once you're behind and once you're reset, the thought process from this position is, what can I do to help my guys up front, right? So that's the mentality coming in. If you ever come in from a reset and you're like, all right, you know what, we're making our own plan, we're gonna come around the far right, like No, because in the time that it takes for you to get up to the front, I can almost guarantee you there's some kind of contact that's going to be kicking off. And if you decided to deviate away, you're just going to be out of position. And once again, you're going to end up out of rotation, right? You're out of sync. Okay, so we kind of have the stage set for this engagement, right? As we begin pushing, you can see here 1-3 is pretty fucked up. They're pretty loose here, kind of isolated out in the wind, right? Unfortunate. And now we have this overmatch on the insurgent side. There's a small window here where they can cause a mass cow, maneuver, right? Maybe cause another mass cow and just sue chaos. You want to sue as much chaos as insurgents as possible. And this is the prime time to do it. We see initiation here from a grenade launcher. This squad ends up getting fixed, right? We have essentially almost an L. So honestly, good stuff here. We see that entire insurgent line open up. This 1-3 element, cooked. No support. Insurgents saw the opportunity and they took it. So this right here, great example of recognizing when you have overmatch. Great example. And you want to just catch an element out in the open and demolish it, right? So excellent decision making, excellent positioning. Look, like this is almost like this is beautiful, right? This is beautiful. Ranger element recognizes what's going on and they start hauling ass, right? They start hauling ass. Now, there's technically one full insurgent squad unaccounted for, so moving the entire element out in the open is a little risky, sure, but you know, Fonty's up here, he's making risky plays, aggressive plays. I like it. Just keep in mind that is one thing to consider, is like we're moving an entire element out. You don't necessarily know where that third squad is. You could end up, if there was a third insurgent squad here and they catch them in the open, bad news bears, right? So just cognizant, every single thought matters. You might not see all the plays yet, but you will with time. These insurgents are just laying the hate, absolutely laying the hate on this element. This element is completely overmatched. So, advanced tip, right? Because I know you guys are locked into the fight at this stage. You know, as a beginner player, you guys are locked into the engagement. You're locked at kill, focused on what's in front of you. When we go back, right, and we talked before about the initiative and recognizing when you have the initiative, another skill to learn is when you have complete control, okay? And why is it important to recognize when you have complete control? Is it because you need to then reallocate resources corresponding to the situation, right? So what I mean by that is, if we open up paint once more, is if I have like 5 rangers here, right, and I have 9 insurgents engaging this, yes, we are winning the fight, but if we think about resources, it's the same thing as one insurgent squad locking down a whole 9-man ranger squad. It is the same thing, but kind of on the opposite side, right? Where we are expending too many resources on what is in front of us to deal with it. And so what that means is, as a leader, you should recognize when you have complete control, when you're spending too much resources in one spot, and see where you can allocate resources to better assist the platoon. And so if we recognize, oh, these guys are slamming, right? They're fish in a barrel, right? Then maybe not everyone in the group needs to be looking at that, right? Maybe we can start sending some bodies out for flank security, right? Because if there's only 5 or 6 rangers out here and we're absolutely murdering them, the thought should be, where's the rest of the ranger platoon, right? Because they're going to come to this thing. We just kicked the hornet's nest, right? That should be the thought. That should be the thought, is where's the rest of the ranger platoon? So don't get tunnel visioned, right? Think about the situation at hand. I know this is super cool, right? All the insurgents at this point are like hyped up, like, oh my, we're laying into them. We're winning the fight. There's a point as a leader where you recognize, okay, we're winning this fight too much. Where's the rest of the enemy, right? And so that tunnel vision ends up getting super, super, super dangerous as we continue forward here. So as we continue here, these guys are absolutely cooked, right? There's no way these guys are moving. It's sparse cover. We got RPGs going off, right? They're getting peppered by indirect. The thought process should be here. All right, I'm not getting any returning fire. I'm seeing a lot of dead rangers. There's not enough room for rangers in this space, right? This is where the squad leaders, specifically, because your fire team leaders are typically like focused on leading their dudes and killing, and later the platoon leader will take the step back. Right? You take the step back and you think about the larger picture. Like, okay, we were essentially winning or won this fight. What's the next thing? And start thinking about that, right? And going through that tactic and that process. Because if you wait too long, then you can have the initiative and the tables can turn. and we're about to watch that. So like these guys are not even shooting back, right? Like half these guys are in cap. It's a free fire zone, right? There's maybe a couple things going back and forth. I don't even think they're shooting. I think these guys are like completely in cap at this point. This is why ceasefire is important, right? There are going to be moments where like, okay, as a leader, like we don't need to be shooting here. We're expending ammunition for one, right? So we're just wasting ammo. And the second is we're creating chaos for ourselves, right? If we're not receiving fire and we think we've won the fight, cut the guns, right? Give it a second. Listen a little bit. Okay, they're shooting back again. Ramp it up again. But tunnel vision right here is like one of the things that's happening. It's like a whole bunch of tunnel vision. But like, look at this, guys. This is you guys first weekend, like working in fire teams, working in squads, executing platoon level maneuvers. Like, give yourselves a pat on the back. Give yourselves a massive pat on the back. So we see here bloodthirsty, right? We see an element start pushing into assault through. That's completely fine, right? We want to find, fix, finish. We're in the finish portion here. But once again, these guys are pretty much all in cap. Everyone is looking at this one spot, right? The entire insurgent team is focused on like 5 in cap guys. So squad leaders and fire team leaders, you need to be able to take that step back. Advanced skill, right, is to get out of the tunnel vision, take a step back, look around, and get your bearings again. Because the guys on the line are going to be just shooting, right? So leadership should be taking a step back. We see the insurgents are just bloodthirsty. Like there's 6 Blue 4 guys here about to be overrun completely. But now Blue 4 maneuvered into a position with high ground, and the entire insurgent platoon is in enfilade. What we mean by enfilade is that the entire line can be shot straight through by a couple people. So on paper, if this was flat terrain, a single saw gunner in this position could lock the entire insurgent platoon down if this was flat terrain. Does that make sense to that? Does that make sense here? The entire platoon is in a single line where a single saw gunner is just ripping through in one direction is going to lock them all down. Luckily for the insurgents, there's the tiniest bit of elevation gradient here that prevents that from happening. But this on flat terrain would be a massacre, right? Because they'd be cooked. So they're super happy here that there's a little ditch, right? There's a little embankment here. And now we can see that happen to a degree, right? We recognize that these guys are now caught in enfilade. Blue 4 made a really good platoon maneuver out to the flank. And essentially the same thing is happening without the lethality, right? What I mean by that is on flat terrain, no cover to get to, these guys are all dead instantly. Just machine guns, 240s chewing through the line. Because there is cover, they might not die, but all of these guys are effectively suppressed and pinned, right? All of these guys are effectively suppressed and pinned from 1, 2, 3 guys. That's all it took. That's all it took. And this entire, like 2 squads, trapped. So we can kind of see that happen. Excellent job from these machine gunners doing exactly what they need to, right? Search and traverse, or just traversing, sweeping it back and forth, right? Machine gunners, everything matters. How you employ and use that machine gun. Don't use it as a sniper rifle. Don't use it as a single shot weapon. You guys are the ones that should be doing this stuff. And you guys are, right, in this particular instance, covering the entire insurgent platoon. So, morale starts to break. Morale starts to break really fast. The insurgents end up getting routed. Once again, we have a squad back here from the insurgents in reserve. Once again, coming back into the zone as an element. Your first shot should be, how do I support? How do I support? How do I support? Where do I go to be the best value I can for the elements up front? Because coming back in late, you guys are off tempo. You guys are behind. You had your chance. Now it's time to come in and support. So ideally, these guys come in a little bit faster. I understand. Everyone's scared. First time trying to organize. Totally get it. But that's just one thing you guys should think about when you're coming in late. Okay, so these guys Rangers have regained the initiative, right? Crazy, insane, biggest smile on my face. Platoon maneuvers on both sides. Rangers regain the initiative. They start throwing 40 Mike into the dead space. Good job. MGs are raking the entire hill. Good stuff. Where do we go from here? So as we can see here, all the insurgents now are bellies down in the dirt. They're scared. There's machine guns going off. We start seeing smoke and we start seeing the rout. Super crazy stuff. So at this point, morale is broken. We see insurgents start making runs for the hills. Absolutely insane stuff. So Yeah, morale is broken. Insurgents try to squirt out. We see aggression from the Ranger team. Once again, super coordinated, super good stuff here. Really aggressive on the movement. These guys get cut down as they try to squirt. Rangers are doing a fantastic job here. Continuing once base of fire, right? One step forward, one step stable. So we have the base of fire moving, the assault elements pushing up, and you can just see the beauty of the tactics here, right? This squad is doing a great job locking down these guys so they can't respond. The assaulting force coming in with that overwhelming fire, mopping up. However, we're gonna start to see yet another table turn. Okay, Rangers get too aggressive. Rangers get overconfident. Both elements begin moving simultaneously. You can start to see this element start to push up, even though this element is not even set yet and not in a position where they're addressing or suppressing the main insurgent force, right? These micro decisions are just absolutely wild. And just seeing them in play is just like, I cannot get over how crazy and excited and happy this makes me. But we see Rangers they're more or less set here a little bit, but they're not set in a position that is addressing the main insurgent force. They're handling these squirters a little bit. And once again, we go back to resource allocation, right? We now have 9 guys engaging not much, right? So resource allocation, you can kind of see how this is going to bite. Rangers begin making a forward frontal assault without a suppressing element. Everyone from this element has picked up and begun moving into the insurgents. There's no cover. There's no suppressing fire. And insurgents feel that. They feel it on the ground. It gives them enough time and space, whether it's the sound, whether it's them being able to speak again, whether it's the pressure just letting up that tiny little bit, that they can kind of reorganize themselves and orient in the direction of contact, right? And what you're going to see here is without that suppression, without that distraction, without that pressure, the insurgents are able to hold a linear defense against this frontal assault. So Rangers attempt to push, but you can see here that push there's no suppression going on at this point. You know, this Joe's over here trying to get an angle, right, to do something. But these guys, like, you can feel, I know you guys out there have felt it. When the shooting stops and you can think, like, you can start making decisions again, right? Versus when you guys are getting shot at, things are snapping all around you. The dirt's kicking up, the trees are snapping, right? Like, it is insanity out there, right? But the second that lifts, I know you guys can think clearer, right? And that is actual, real psychological suppression occurring in the game. And you can see here, with that suppression removed, these guys are able to figure it out again, orient in the direction of where the assault is coming from, and this frontal assault goes disastrously. Because these guys are in a set position, and all they have to do and worry about is shooting these guys at the front. So this frontal assault gets canalized. Canalized is basically, you know, being forced into a single thin area. And Rangers get mass-called on this push here from the insurgents that are sitting in cover. And this becomes a large problem. You can still see, like, some elements from the insurgents are routed and they're running. But this ends up being incredibly costly. Sprinting into a forward frontal assault is not a great experience, right? So, there's some casualties here from Red 4, but this entire Blue 4 element now ineffective and isolated. Once again, we're seeing that happen. They have no support here. There's no supporting element. What ended up happening is a slight tactical misplay where the Rangers separated again. And you can see this any time that the Rangers take, like, this is not big, right? This is maybe a 300-meter gap, but the terrain, the open terrain, as well as the slope, ends up cutting off this element from any support. Support is so fundamentally important to the experience. And this frontal assault goes horribly wrong, despite this element being routed, despite this element having sufficient casualties. Without support, it's suicide, right? Maneuver without fire is suicide. Fire without maneuver is a waste of ammo, right? That is very much so the case. And so this element gets clapped. And the funny thing is, like, if we continue here, out of position, right? We're out of position here, out of position. Or maybe there wasn't enough coordination here to communicate that we're making the assaults and we need to cover here and suppress. Whatever the case may be, ended up being that tiny, super tiny window of opportunity, super tiny mistake, big consequence. Okay, so we're going to continue here. Yeah, and this is also 1-3 was wiped out, right? 1-3 combat effective. This was a 2-squad Ranger element here. if that element in reserve, right? This element that's if I let me back up. So we still have like an insurgent element back here. You see these guys? See these guys back here? Imagine the difference in this engagement. We already have one Ranger squad essentially mass-called out. We have a second Ranger squad that just mass-called themselves again. Imagine if we're communicating on the comms and we're saying, okay, you know, we're really on top of our stuff and we understand how many elements we've defeated or are engaged. This is an opportunity, right? 2 squads mass-called on the Rangers. 1 squad for the insurgents still in reserve, right? The faster you guys get at recognizing those opportunities, the faster you guys get at communicating, boom, this squad immediately moves into the fight. We are now overmatched and we can wipe the Rangers, right? So there's all these micro opportunities out on the field. They present themselves, experience will reveal them and give you the right decision to make with time. But just acknowledging that these things are out there, right? Okay, so yeah, these Rangers are cooked. 2 squads in the dirt, essentially. 3rd squad out of position, too far on the flank, right? They recognize it. They come back up the hill. Issue. 1 squad just got mass-called to the front, doing a frontal assault on this position. Dead bodies make more dead bodies, okay? There's a certain point in time where you have to acknowledge the fact that these guys at the front or in certain positions are just dead. And if you continue to try to help them without dealing with what killed them first, you will make the problem worse, okay? That is a common mistake that everyone in this game makes. Everyone in the genre, every single person that enters the milsim genre, or the tactical shooter genre, will make that mistake of trying to give aid and provide aid before dealing with what actually caused the casualty. If you do not deal with what caused the casualty before you provide aid, you will make the situation worse. And we're about to see the situation get so much worse. Rangers fall right back into the trap. Insurgents are in an even better position than they were before. They now, once again, dispersion and separation. 1 element supporting, 1 element on the front, right? Good separate. If this element was right here, this turns into a 50-50 dice roll, right? And we're just coin flipping the engagement. But because we have separation, guess what? Rangers now dealing with trying to get to the casualties, dealing with trying to kill the initial line that ambushed the first squad, and now having to deal with a support by fire position on their left flank. This goes horribly. Right? As you can imagine. Because what they're trying to do is get up here, render aid, and fight the fight, and deal with the fight. Like, it's too much. You have to recognize when to cut your losses, right? And so, yeah, they just get canalized in this tree line. Insurgents here, kind of bleeding out, but just enough to, like, be enough of a nuisance. Great job, whoever this is, whatever this group is over here, recognizing, okay, we have there's something instinctual here going on where it's like, we have the freedom to push the right flank, right? I cannot tell you exactly what goes through these players' minds. I cannot tell you exactly what information they have or what the decision or what the criteria that they're feeling in that moment. But there's a very instinctual thing where you just know we have the advantage and we can press it. And so we see that opportunity be seized by this right flank element here. Right? We start seeing rapid movement on the right. Now, it's important, right? You'll learn this with time. If you make this recklessly, right? Let's just say we remove or we rewind and we get rid of some of the information and we rush this and there's another Ranger squad here or another Ranger squad here, right? And then this movement becomes suicidal. So this is either a risky thing, depending on how experienced you are, or if you're experienced, this is the right play. If you kind of understand what I'm saying there. It's a very fine line between lucky and skill in this particular situation. But because if we're on the right page and these squads are communicating like, okay, we wiped out, maybe he knows we wiped out a squad here, we wiped out a squad here, this is the last Ranger squad, and that becomes an experienced play. Versus if we rewind all the way to the beginning at the house and we look at the aggressive play in the house, that was a risky play. Now either play can work out, right? But your odds improve the more you're solid in that decision because of actual information instead of rolling the dice. So we see insurgents pushing up on the right flank for whatever reason. You know, they understand that they have the freedom to maneuver here. And once again, we still have a whole insurgent squad in the rear here trying to reorganize. Like, just imagine if they had come in earlier, right? This is nearly a game-winning engagement here. And just think about how many times insurgents fed a squad into the Rangers the entire duration of the match. Just think of how many times they one squad into two, one squad into two, one squad into two. As insurgents, if you can get a single solid squad wipe or platoon wipe in, you are going to be in such a good position because you just need literally like one more of those and you'll end the match. So this is almost a complete game flip here. If they had been a little bit more reserved with how they were sending squads in the beginning, they could have won the entire game off of like it's pick and choose your battles. And I'm sure we're going to get to a meta where it's just like teams are feeling it out and then you make more of a decisive engagement. But like right now, I understand first weekend guys are throwing squads into each other. But we're just trying to teach you guys and show you guys the consequence of those actions. And so right here, unfortunately, we see the timer go out. Insurgents ran out of lives here. But just imagine if they had like one more wave of lives. The entire Ranger element here is caught in the open. They have another squad in reserve coming in. This is a clean sweep. This is a clean sweep if they had just a little more manpower to do it, right? Because we see this movement here, right? The insurgents come in on the flank. They collapse. Rangers in complete disarray. So, yeah, things to consider, things to think about in macro. I know you guys can't see this stuff on the ground. It's super hard, but like every decision you make matters. Every time you get caught in a fight, it matters. Where you position yourself, it all matters. Who you're sending where. Are you getting the casualty up or are you not? Like all of this is so very, very important. Once again, when we're dealing with buildings, keep in mind, we have realistic penetration in this game. We're going to get like the HEDP functioning as it should. The RPGs function as they should. Buildings are good, but they aren't always instantly just amazing. That is a distinction you are going to have to learn. I know in other games, buildings are indestructible and unpenetrable, and they provide decent cover and concealment. But you have to understand that when you put yourself in a building, you have to be very careful about how you do it. Okay? You have to be very, very careful about how you do it. Because if you jam this entire blue 4 force into this building, once again, if there's only one door in, maybe there's 2 doors in, you've trapped yourselves in the building. So being able to know how many guys to put in a building is a skill you will learn with time, depending on the building, depending on the situation, depending on the surrounding terrain, right? But I can almost say it is, in this current situation, a good rule of thumb is you never want more than 4 dudes in a building right now. There's no building in the game currently where you are going to want more than 4 dudes in a single building. Because while it might seem safe, it's a false sense of security if you are not set up properly. So we have kind of a decent spread here, right? We are taking 2 buildings, right? Which is better than jamming everyone into one. But there's like 8 guys in this one structure, right? And you're going to see, once again, resource allocation, why this turns into a big problem. Is because this one dude here, Lone Wolf, he gets killed. He loses a life, right? And we do end up reviving these guys. So Lone Wolf gets punished. But in this particular situation, there's a single fire team here from the, I think it's the Russians. And essentially, if they just put fire on this building, guess what happens to all these guys in this building? They're all stuck. They are all stuck. Guess what? These mud huts too, by the way, they are not bulletproof. Nothing, only the concrete structures in the game are bulletproof. So if there was a PKM up here and he wanted to, he could just rake this building with a PKM, and you guys are now just stuck in a kill box. So just pay attention to that. No more than 4 dudes in a building. Sometimes you're going to want less. Once you can see here, the Lone Wolf loses their life. We do end up, engaging a follow-on element here, so that's super good, right? But this building group, just, guys, you guys got to be careful. You guys got to make sure that you are at least in separate buildings or supporting buildings. We kind of have that going on here, right? But this is why castles are kind of built the way that they are, right? And this is kind of how to wrap your brain around this, right? So if we look at a castle, most castles are built like, to some degree, right? Or forts even, like this, right? And the reason that they're built like this is so that from each side or point, you can cover the other, right? To a degree. If this was a single tower, right? In the middle of a whatever, a field, right? And you stack this with archers or whatever, right? It is incredibly easy to suppress this thing from all sides with 0 support. You are now suppressed. You can't look outside. And now the assaulting force can push in unmolested, right? So just think like this is why forts are built this way, is so that, yes, you might be able to suppress and take care of this one side, but any additional movement onto this side will be addressed by a supporting tower, right? And so that's how you kind of want to think about utilizing buildings or in placing yourself in structures, is utilizing multiple angles that can mutually support each other. Same thing throughout the entire video. Mutually support, right? Okay. So coming back here, right? We are not really mutually supported. Ish from this one direction. Yes, we are mutually supported by this element here. But there happens to be, and this will come with time, like you'll learn the gun sounds. There's AKs and PKMs clacking off in the back, and it's just complete chaos. You see this element here is just in complete disarray. They're working maybe 3 windows for 6 guys, right? I can't even begin to imagine how loud it is in this room, right? I can't even begin to imagine. Everyone, there's probably 2 saws in here, maybe a gun team. There's bullets coming through the walls. These guys are shouting orders at each other. Like, I can't even begin to imagine how loud it is in this room. Okay. So these guys are pinned. They're confused. They can't leave the structure at this point in time, right? Kind of an alpha thing that there's no like, additional stuff around it. Kind of just a building in the middle of nowhere. Of course, I'll be changing in the future. But like, look at this. Look at this. There's 2 machine guns in here. There's like 1 window here to use. Maybe this window. Maybe you can use this door. There's a couple windows on the other sides, but like kind of cooked, right? And we're gonna see the fort example pop in here in a second. This squad ends up in a one-on-one engagement over here. The too long didn't read of this engagement is that the red team was more slow and deliberate with their movement, and they caught blue moving, like just walking through, and because they're more deliberate with their movement, they could stop, see, and shoot from cover, and it just, the ambush, the initial 30 seconds, right, caused casualties here, catastrophic. No supporting element to help recover the casualties. Red can begin pushing pressure. Right, so that's what happens on the right flank, is like these 4 guys got caught out when red was like very carefully moving through. And so like your speed, I know when you're walking through these 4, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm bored, I'm just gonna W key, right? I'm bored, I'm just gonna W key. Well, if the enemy team is not doing that and they're moving up, stop, or moving slowly even, or moving up crouched, and you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna W key, guess who gets shot and killed first, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay. Anyways, coming back, right? This is a one-on-one coin flip fight here. Red just happens to win it. But back here now, these guys are trapped and fixed. Red team here is working the problem. They begin pushing up. This becomes a disaster. Casualties on the ground. Walls are not bulletproof. And we're going to kind of see how this develops. Let me speed up. You can kind of see the decision to move into this building turns into a 20-minute issue, right? This decision to move into this building turns into a literal 15, if not 20-minute issue. So now we can see, now they've lost mutual support, right? This element has either, I forget if they collapse in here or they got killed, right? Don't collapse into the same building. Don't do that, please. You've lost your fort, right? You've lost your mutual support. If anything, pull into this building, maintain in this building, right? And you're just going to have to stay separated, because the second you pile everything into a bag like this, right? Guess what? You are now a shooting gallery. You have no one that's able to watch the outside walls, and it's very easy to suppress, right? Because just think about the numbers game here. The OPFOR can be in an infinite amount of positions external the building. You have 5 visible exits that you can shoot out of. You are never going to win that suppression fight. You are never going to win that suppression fight in isolation. If you maybe had like 3 more buildings here, then yes, okay, good. You have cover, you have concealment, and you're in a fortified position. Like you have a little bit more of an option. But jam packing this, just think about the numbers. You have 5 doors you're shooting out of. They have infinite amount of angles to shoot in, right? So now we're shoehorned into this thing. And like this is like you can just walk up to the building, right? Because these guys are just popping rounds in the window. These guys are scared to look out because they're getting pre-fired, because it's very predictable where you're going to stick your head out of. So Nova pops up here. We get a good frag in the building, right? And this just goes as you would expect it to go. Some really close fires here, right? But you can see these guys are not doing anything, right? We try a breakout here. Doesn't work. And then super lucky that this window is at this height, but Yeah, you just have all the time in the world to work this problem now. And so this is a great example, actually. This is a great example of how to take a structure, right? If we talked about in the very beginning of the video, how we wanted, how you want to control every aspect of the problem. This was an unintentional use of that, right? Where we have control over the inside, right, of what we're trying to work. And we have control over the external, by chance, right? This squad engaged this squad and isolated this element, right? So you kind of see how, even though it was by chance, those categories or criterias for your conditions being set were met miraculously, divine timing, right? We handle the supporting element. We have control over the building. We handle the supporting element that's out here for the most part. There's some stragglers, sure, but this squad cannot do anything to assist. It is so stable now to work this building. You can pick this thing apart 1,000 different ways. You have the time and space to do it, right? And in this particular case, it was Nova making a hero charge up, right? But he was only able to do this. This might look like a lone wolf play, right? And to a degree, on a very micro scale, it is. But in macro, when you look at all the things that had to have happened in order to allow him to make this play, it was 3 squads working together. 1 squad taking out the supporting element, another squad suppressing from the flank, and a 3rd squad cutting off the 3rd element, right? And it might have been happenstance, and it might have been coincidence that worked out that way. But this is not like, oh, the lone wolf was able to do this. No, this was only made possible because conditions were set by all the other elements. Okay, and so now you can see, like, once you have control over everything, the building becomes relatively easy, right? Depending on the building to take down, because they can't break out. They're not getting support coming in, and they can't move around. And so you can frag it to death. You can wall pen it to death. You can breach and clear it if you need to. So this was a fantastic example by happenstance of how to take down a structure, right? Yep, this guy gets right. This is it's just all she wrote, right? All she wrote. Yeah, super cool stuff. Yeah, you can just he has all the time. He doesn't have to see how he only has to worry about the building. I don't even know if he knows this, but he only has to worry about the building, right? Because he's got control. There's so much control here that maybe he feels intuitively or instinctively, or he's been communicated to him that this is kind of the stage you want set to clear a building. Is you want the guys pushing the building should only have to look at the building. They only have to look at the building, and you have complete control. These guys are essentially dead to rights. Yeah. So we can see that this decision, 20 minutes ago, maybe not that far long ago, 15 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago, to push in and take the building turns into a catastrophic issue.